Happy Gen Con, everybody. I am Joe O'Brien from the Glass Cannon Network. Whether you are here in Indianapolis or joining us from afar, I hope you are finding ways to enjoy the best 4 days in gaming the way that we are. I am so excited today to welcome a few guests in to talk specifically about one of my absolute favorite tabletop RPGs on the market right now. As you all already know, the Marvel Multiverse RPG is amazing, and it's only getting better, as we have found out this weekend at Gen Con. I have with me today the lead designer of the game, Matt Forbeck, and also the producer and project lead from Marvel, CJ Cervantes. What is going on, fellas? Thanks for talking to us for a minute here.
Thanks for having us here, Joe. It's always fun to see you, man.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to see you guys. We had so much fun at Comic-Con last year. It was the first time that we, got to really hang out, meet Matt, and not only dig into the game a little bit, but also, Matt, to hear your insights on the back end of like, oh, well, that didn't start that way. It went through this process and this process. And so it's going to be great today to get a little bit of insight into some of the new additions that you have coming out at Gen Con to supplement the game. I know CJ's all like, it's going to be awesome. But before we get there, I just want to start for a second for those people that haven't seen us play the Marvel Multiverse RPG yet, maybe haven't picked it up or looked up anything about it quite yet, and want to get I'd love to give a little bit of background on the core game. So if we could just, I'll kick it to you, Matt, real quick to start. If you could just give us your quick sort of elevator pitch of what is the game and what differentiates it system-wise from other RPGs that are out there.
Sure. It's a Marvel Multiverse Role-Playing Game. We use something called the D616 system, which is a 3D6 system. If you're a gamer, you just steal 3 dice from your Yahtzee kit or whatever, mark one of them up with a marker. So it's a different one, right? So it's an odd colored die or whatever. You roll those 3 dice, and you add them up, add them to your ability, whatever that happens to be, which is melee, agility, resilience, vigilance, ego, and logic, which spells Marvel right up and down the line.
Love it.
And say you're punching somebody, so you add your melee attribute to it. If that meets or beats your opponent's melee defense score, then you hit, right? And the neat thing about it is it's a one-roll system, so you don't have to roll for damage after that. You look at your Marvel die, which is your middle die, your off-color die, and you multiply that by your rank and add any powers you have into it and add any kind of ability you have to it, and that's your damage right there. And if you get 1 on the Marvel die, that means something fantastic has happened, right? So That's often double damage, but it's also, if you're using a power, can trigger off a special effect for it. So it really gives you that blockbuster, widescreen kind of battlefield that you get for punching, throwing people through walls and throwing haymakers and punching through spaceships and such. And we really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
I just love it. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job with it. We actually had to, and I think people have seen this that have watched us play it. You've seen us struggle with that knee-jerk need to like roll for damage after you hit. You go to pick them up again. It's like, no, it's already, all the information you need about that attack is all right there in one roll, and it helps keep the game moving. And like you said, it also helps to make it feel explosive at times, which is just fantastic. CJ, I'd love to ask you, I kind of kick it to you for a second on the business end. I'm curious what you guys have seen in terms of reception, not only from RPG players, tabletop players that you're trying to bring into this, but also Marvel Comics fans that might not play RPGs. Have you seen both audiences come to the game in different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I first want to start by saying I think I also have a little bit of creative too, not just business. So I'm not a total snooze fest. All right, everyone out there,
don't tune out. Don't skip the next 30 seconds. CJ's
exactly. I got the next great pitch. It's all right here. No, it's actually been pretty tremendous to see not just RPG community, but the Marvel Comics community as well really pick up our game. And our game sits in this really awesome space where if you are a veteran RPG player or if you're a new RPG player, I truly feel like this game can service you. Whether you're a Marvel fan, you just like superheroes, we designed the game to be super fun and accessible for literally both parties of folks. And that's because we understand, to Matt's point, Marvel's all about having fun. We want people to feel super. You want to feel like the punch that you do sends your little Hydra minion flying through a wall and outside of the building, and you wish you can absolutely do in the game.
Right.
So seeing folks do this at shows like New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con, folks who might say, I've never played an RPG. I just want to play a Spider-Man and see them have their heroic moment is just tremendous. It's amazing.
That's awesome. To tell their own Spider-Man story. I mean, we are still getting geeked up about it. We still talk about the stories that have happened in our games playing this game. It facilitates that narrative excitement and those memories so much. I love the way you describe it. And also, real quick, before I get into the details of the new supplements that you're coming out with, is this idea of feeling super and doing super things is awesome, but we've also found that it doesn't mean it's a cakewalk, because the villains get the same sort of level of power, and in some cases more so. And so while we have absolutely dominated, especially when it comes to those Hydra minions, you also, when you find you're really up against the big bad, we've had heroes go down. Heroes get incapacitated for the rest of the fight and stuff like that. So for any of those players out there that are like, I want something that's a little bit more gritty and a little bit more challenging, where you have to play the game well in order to succeed, they have it all built in there as well. So yeah, you guys are just covering every base. But I want to talk about these new supplements that you have coming. I keep calling them supplements. There's an adventure, and then there's also a whole expanded supplement that you can use to add to and develop your universe. And spoiler, it's Deadpool related. Big Deadpool summer this summer. We got a Deadpool adventure. But first, before we get into that, I want to talk about the X-Men. The X-Men is the heart and soul of this supplement that you have released. So why don't you talk about that for a second? Just give us an intro. How did this project develop? Why is it X-Men first that you want to dive into after the core game?
Yeah, Matt, you mind if I grab this one first?
Go for it, man.
I think it was a pretty unanimous decision for us to go with X-Men as our first expansion for the RPG. We've probably deliberated for hours over every little iterative thing within the game that you could possibly imagine. And Matt's nodding his head because we've gone back and forth a ton.
Matt, are you sweating?
PTSD. He's having flashbacks.
The trauma.
But when we decided to say, we have the Cataclysm of Kang, which is our first full 6 campaign adventure book we put out. Mm-hmm. But for a source book or an expansion, we all just X-Men.
Yeah.
It just made sense.
Yeah.
The X-Men just have such unique powers or such unique characters, and they have such great stories that you can really just dive into, especially for an RPG. Yeah.
I felt that way when I first approached the game. So when I made my own character the first time with the core game, I made a mutant. It's just like, that is my introduction into Marvel. It was the 90s. I was just starting to get into comic books, and the X-Men #1 was, I guess it was like 1993 or 92, something like that. I can still see the 4-part cover. Yeah. I can still see Magneto on the front, and Cyclops was huge, ripped. I was like, I loved that series. And so, but it does come back to more than just the powers. It's so interesting to play mutants. They always have such interesting stories that anyone can relate to. And so it's a real quick way to come into the game. How about mechanically speaking, if I can change it to that for a second, is there, are these supplements just like, is it just added powers, or are there new mechanics that will change the way the core game plays a little bit?
I got this one. So we started out thinking, we're just going to put out splat books and tell you, here's a whole boatload of profiles. Here's whatever you need to play, go, right? Because we already did all the rules. And then, the fans were like, but what about this? What about that? What about this? And we're like, yeah, okay. We have this great solid core of a game, but there's lots of ways you can build out from there, right? A lot of interesting things you can do with it. And so there's something like 50 pages of new rules in there, which is about what was in the core rulebook. The core rulebook, the combat section is about 48 pages, something like that. So there's a lot of new rules in there. They're not just origins, they're not just powers, although there are some new powers. There's a new thing called narrative powers, which are for characters that are so powerful that really only the narrator should be using them because they kind of break the game over their knee as far as balance goes, right? And so we have all sorts of new things there. We got a new way for characters to rank up from one rank to another. We got all sorts of different
things. Just let me clarify. That's right. When you played a rank 3 superhero adventure, you weren't going to become rank 4. That wasn't part of the system initially.
Yeah, you could, but what we instituted an idea of a level cap, right? So if you're Spider-Man, you generally don't want to be fighting cosmic levels, so you're probably going to have a level cap around rank 4. right?
Right.
And if you want to be Captain Marvel, you might want to start out at rank 1 and then work your way all the way up to rank 6. Then you're fighting Galactus and the Silver Surfer and whoever else you want to fight.
Yeah.
But for the X-Men book, we realized that, this is all about training young mutants, right? About bringing them in, teaching them how to react to the world, teaching them to live in a world that hates them, that fears them, right? So we wanted to be able to have people a way to slowly grow as opposed to just, going up from rank 1 to rank 2, suddenly like, boom, I'm much more powerful. This way you can actually kind of grow into it. So we broke the ranks up in the different benefits that you get. So you get them incrementally, like in 10 different increments, as opposed to one large bolus of power. Now you can kind of get a slow feed and get yourself going and kind of work your way up into it. And it really works fantastically well. It's kind of neat that, again, there's bits for like if you train in the danger room, you can get experience for doing this, right? As opposed to going out and doing adventures every day.
Oh, cool.
You got to train too. You got to be able to work together with this. And there's plots. There's a random danger room generator for things that'll come at you from out of the sides.
What?
And cause all sorts of random, wild, crazy crap to happen.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
Great.
Fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's so clever.
We basically did what we wanted to play with, right? And we're fans of this kind of stuff. So it always helps when you have that kind of a base.
CJ, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you give me a ballpark number of because one of the things that blew me away in the core is the sheer number of powers. There's so many, and they're so uniquely delineated, and it made it feel like even though these are a list of a finite list of powers you could have as a superhero, you feel like you're creating a unique hero every time because of the way you can mix and match and combine them. Ballpark, how many new powers are we getting in this new book? I'm not going to hold you to it.
We split it up between introducing some new power sets that we felt were unique to mutants, but also expanding some of the existing power sets as well to include some additional powers, again, that are reflective for mutants. So it was a little challenging, I'll say, because for the core rulebook, you want to create a game that feels like it encompasses the Marvel universe.
Right.
But then when you want to drill down into X-Men, all of a sudden your core book can go from 300 pages to 500 pages. And then you say, well, what about the Avengers? And well, what about Spider-Man? And all of a sudden now your core rulebook is this big, 3,000 pages.
A true tome. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think some folks had questions for us, like, "Hey, where is this power, and where is this character? Did they leave this out of the book?" The answer is no. The answer is you're most likely going to find it in the X-Men expansion. So,
gotcha.
Right. There's like 10 new pages of powers, and there's stuff like precognition, right? Gives them destiny, doing different things,
right?
And, that's a power that it's tricky, right? Because you don't want to say, and by the way, this is how the entire adventure is going to go. Good luck, right? And just run yourself down the rails and try to break off on it. So we had to break that down into things that were usable and digestible and fun for players to play with, as opposed to just saying, now you know all the secrets. Good luck with that. So, the multiple man was one that we actually ended up doing as a narrative power because there's a character that he can basically unlimitedly duplicate himself, right? And every time he hits a smack to the head, he comes up with another dupe, and he can send them off, and they can go to law school or have kids or whatever, and come back. And he's like, "Hey, we're all good now. I have all this knowledge in my head." And it's like you're a little mini god in a sense. Like, how do you balance that out? You can't really. So, if every player could just say, "I'm going to take one of every power and every other thing that's skill based," and go. So that's a narrative power, right? But there's lots and lots of different ways to do things, and this gives people a lot more flexibility with how they want to tackle these in their game, or at home, or if they're playing at conventions, or wherever they want to play.
Yeah, and just to clarify, sorry, go ahead, CJ.
Just was going to say, the power set I think I'm most excited for is probably our healing power set.
Yeah, that's true.
I know a lot of people were looking for that actually from the core rulebook, and a lot of people love to play support characters too. In video games, in RPGs, people just love to heal people, which I think is beautiful. By the way, I'm a DPSer. I love running in and bruising things. So for someone to just say, "Oh, here's some health back," or "Here's some extra defense," I'm like, this is perfect. I love you, all you support people out there. You're the best. So I'm really excited for people to get that and start kind of making. I like that our game is very free form and open in terms of how you can craft a character. But if you really want to make a kind of prototypical support healer, now you have the tools to officially do that with this title.
So you have so many options, so many different ways to craft them. How does the narrative, and feel free to say, if you're like, we don't want to answer that, but how does the narrative work with where the X-Men narrative has gone over the last 30 years in the comic books? Because things have kind of changed a lot since when I was a kid in the world of the X-Men.
Right? The last 6 months, it was a Krakoan era for like the last 3 to 4 years, right? It just ended just as this book is coming out. We're like, oh, okay. So the status quo that we've been working with is going to dissolve. Interesting.
So how do you approach that when you're making a rule book? How much does the narrative of the world of the comics factor into any kind of limitations you have to put in the powers or the rules?
Well, what we did for the X-Men book is we based it along teams, right? For every expansion that we're coming out with, we're going to do a different kind of a theme for. So when the Spider-Verse book comes out next year, for instance, that's going to be around supporting cast, things like that, and gadget hacking and stuff. Kind of stuff that Spider-Man stories are always based around, right? Well, the X-Men is always based around teamwork and family, really, right? You have your found family of fellow heroes that you're working with, and sometimes even your villains come and go off the teams. But it's like, are you part of X-Men or X-Force or any one of the other dozens of New Mutants, different types of teams?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have different chapters in each of those that tell you the history of each of those different teams, right? About how they developed, who they are, where they come from, who they are now, and who they might be in the future. So you'll be able to get that if you want to play somebody from X-Force or whatever, you now know the tone that you want to strike with that kind of a game, right? Mm-hmm. X-Force is like the dark, dirty secret, the special ops team for the X-Men.
Yes.
Right? So if you want to do that kind of stuff, you're an X-Force
I love
guy,
X-Force.
Right? If you want to do young kids who are in school, then it's like a New Mutants team or a Generation X team or whatever you want to have. So we actually have a chapter on mutant schools that you can use for that kind of stuff, right? But when we do profiles, we try to do the more modern characters. We say, these are the latest ones that are the Marvel comics that you can come out and play right now or read about right now. So we focus on that for the profiles, but we give you the history so that you can, if you want to make your own characters or versions of them, it's very easy to do. Say, okay, I'm Cyclops, but I'm the teenage Cyclops now, or I'm Cyclops, but back when I was the bad Cyclops.
Mm-hmm.
You could do, or powered up by the Phoenix Cyclops. We actually have rules in it for the Phoenix Force coming in and possessing people too. Because, hey, that happens in the Marvel comics.
Yeah. It just sounds awesome the way that you've covered so many different areas of, what is still my favorite property of Marvel is the X-Men. And so as you're saying these things, it's so nostalgic and you're bringing up so many different areas of this property that just feels like you guys have covered so much of it as playable things that people can use in the game, which is great. Speaking of sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for example, Profiles, X-Men 97 was such a huge, massive hit on Disney Plus, and you look at some of the levels of the characters in there versus maybe some of the levels in the core rulebook, and you say, well, why are they different? It's like, well, they are technically different universe of characters. So we did scope out and actually stat out a bunch of X-Men 97 characters as well, which folks can find on marvel.com/RPG. So if you want to add some flair and flavor to your X-Men adventures, you can absolutely go and play with those versions of the characters as well.
Oh, that's phenomenal. How many new character sheets did you add in this supplement of existing heroes?
I think it's like 80, 85, somewhere in that ballpark, right?
Yeah, a lot of characters.
80? Wow.
We could have done 300, right?
Wow.
There's so many X-Men characters and villains. I mean, honestly, we're kind of pulling teeth at the end. We're like, oh, can't we put this other one in there? It's like, we need the rules for this, and we got this written here, and we got maps of this great stuff over here. And can we shove a few more characters in? I'm like, nah, you run it. There's only so many pages in the book.
You got to draw the line somewhere. At a certain point,
you got to just cut it. Say this is what we think is important. And everybody's got a favorite character that's not going to show up, and everybody's got even hopefully their best favorite character that is going to show up, right? So we try to get the ones we know are the most popular, and eventually, in the 5 to 10 year plan, we'll cover every Marvel character ever. We'll even get down to like Irving Forbush and the mailman from the Fantastic Four and all this kind of stuff, right?
That's great.
But it'll take time. That's all I'm saying.
Whether you want to come to the table with one of these amazing pre-gens, which I've done on our shows, I've played Vision, and that has been so much fun, or create your own character, which I've done and played it. It's also a blast. what do you take them out into and play? You can make up your own stories if you want, or like you said, you had your first big release, remind me, the Cataclysm of Kang.
Yeah.
And then, but now we have a new one coming, and I'm so excited for this because it's a Deadpool-themed adventure. Give us a tease. Tell us a little bit about, obviously you got to keep it spoiler-free, but like, what is this adventure that's available now for people to grab and play?
So we have Deadpool role plays the Marvel Universe.
I love that title.
So it's a $10 comic size adventure. So it actually opens up with a comic intro that sets the stage for the adventure. So it opens up with a ragtag group of mercenaries in a bit of a sticky situation. And what we find out is that mercenaries are mysteriously disappearing all over the world, but we don't know why. And it's up to, essentially the only mercenaries left, which are the ones that we supply in the adventure, to go through and discover what is happening to mercenaries.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Deadpool in it. Cullen Bunn did a tremendous job writing it. Getting Cullen for the adventure was amazing. I mean, Cullen wrote the Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe series for folks that are familiar with that. Tremendous series. Everyone should go check that out. So it just felt like a perfect fit for us to say, hey, Deadpool, about killing things. Why don't you also write this for us as well?
Yeah.
So it is really tremendous. It's hilarious. Without too much spoilers, I'll say there's you get dropped off at a shipyard. And it takes you all over the place. There may be a job fair for mercenaries where you get to go essentially do like a Comic-Con inside of an RPG. It's a blast.
Colin did a great job with it. He's a hardcore gamer too. I know from way back. So it's neat because you get that crossover between comic book creators and gamers. Like Jim Zub did the adventure for Demiplane, right? So and Jim's been a great game guy for decades now. He's even writing D&D books. So it's wonderful to have the guy who writes the arcade comics, the Murder World comics from Marvel, also doing a Murder World adventure for it. It's nice when you get that kind of synergy going.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how do you find a writer that combines those two things so well? And it's great to find out that he's a gamer like that, because that's so important to understand the pace and flow of these kind of games to really get the subtleties of writing a book like this that's like a comic book style, but it's also an adventure where the heroes that you don't know have to come in and have an effect on the story, which is so cool. Jim is obviously fantastic. He joined us for New York Comic-Con last year and played an amazing Captain America. So that was fantastic. But yeah, it's awesome to see that sort of comic book size development. Is that something that you want to continue to do? Are there more Deadpool adventures planned of that size, or are you going to move on to something different?
I'll say that we do have plans to release more titles like this. I don't think they'll be Deadpool, but I think people will be really excited about the direction that we do choose to go with it.
Oh, okay. All right. Nice.
You'll have to see. I mean, it might not be a coincidence that it's coming out in time for some movie that might be coming out this summer.
It might be.
Or another big release we have coming out next year. You
never know.
Who knows?
Yeah, Matt, you dropped a little nug there that I'm not going to let bypass about the Spider-Verse. I mean, that's
okay, good. I'm safe there.
That's very exciting. So is this kind of like the next big thing that you guys are working on is the Spider-Verse supplement, and that's a 2025 release?
Yep, early 2025, I think, first, second quarter, one of the others. We're trying to do 2 big books a year, 2 big hardcover books a year, and then put on up more of these adventures like we've been talking about. And some of our partners, like Demiplane and Roll20, who are now one entity, might be doing some additional stuff too. But that's, for future announcements, if and when all that happens. But but the main thing is trying to do 2 main big hardcover books, which I think is a lot for a game for players to swallow, right? That's especially if you're putting a ton of rules in them. You don't want to have people start going, well, I can't do all that. It's too much. But 2, every 6 months or so, do one big one in the summer, one big one in the spring. That really works well for us. And so far, it seems to be going well. The Spider-Verse book, I'm really excited about because, that's one I'm in the middle of right now. And I just turned over the rules chapter, which is, it's like, it just grows and grows and grows. And you're like, oh my God, how is it taking forever to do this? Because you have to do a lot of hardcore thinking and research. And one of the tricks about the Marvel game is it's not a generic superhero game, right? It's not like build whatever the heck your imagination requires and go off. It's a Marvel game. That's one of our core selling points. We lean into that hard. We want you to feel like you're playing a Marvel game, even when you're coming up with your own characters or even your own settings. We lean strongly in that direction for everything we do. Because, we're Marvel fans. I don't work for Marvel. I'm a freelancer, but I'm a huge Marvel fan from way back. The guys at Marvel are obviously huge Marvel fans. And we're selling the game to Marvel fans. So we always lean in the direction of trying to make it as most marvelous. I can't say that because the brand will get after me. The most Marvel game ever.
It's fine for right now.
Okay,
you're good.
Okay.
You're
good.
CJ, I'm glad we have you here to police him. He can just get out of hand.
That's the whole reason I'm here. I'm just a buzz. It's fine though.
How can people find these? Let me start with the X-Men expansion. What's the best way to go grab it right now? Obviously, we'll have a link in the description here, but where's the best way to get it and add it to your game?
Well, if you're at Gen Con, go to the Marvel Room, which is up on the second floor of the convention center across from the exhibit hall. And there's a big X-Men type display as you walk in, and we're running games there. I'm running games. We're going to have signings, all sorts of great stuff. So show up and buy it there. You'll have people that are willing to autograph it, like me and whoever else. My son, Marty, who did a lot of the profiles and whatever, will be there doing signings. So come on up for that. After that, I always suggest going to your friendly local game store or comic store and support your local retailers, because those are the people that are really the boots on the ground for us and bringing in new players all the time. So support them if you can. And then after that, it's wherever you want to go. Your online retailers. You can buy this game anywhere, right? I had a friend buy a copy of the core rulebook at Home Goods. I'm like, how the heck? He says, I just found it here. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah, sure.
I think CJ closed that deal.
Yeah,
that was me.
The Home Goods distribution. It was a big get for Marvel.
That's where my creative and business really just converges. It's right there.
My love of Home Goods crossed over with my passion for Marvel.
Exactly.
It would be the similar answer for Deadpool role plays the Marvel Universe, I assume. Is that the kind of thing? Are you selling these out of curiosity to comic shops? Like, are comic shops buying the RPG even if they don't really sell other RPGs?
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of the Deadpool role plays the Marvel Universe as well. It is meant to feel more like a comic book, so that you can kind of go into your comic book shop on a Wednesday, pick it up off of a shelf, no different than you would for your Spider-Man or your normal X-Men comics as well. So Deadpool Role Plays the Marvel Universe will be available similarly, hobby shops, comic shops, your Amazons, your Targets, if you will. But both titles will also be available on Roll20 and Demiplane as well for folks that like the digital play. One of the new things we're trying for Deadpool Role Plays the Marvel Universe, we're actually giving away a free digital code for people that buy it physically. There'll be a little sticker you can peel off, and you can redeem that and read it within Marvel Unlimited. So you can have it right in your phone and play right at the table.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. All right, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to hang with us here at Gen Con. It's awesome to dive deeper into this. I know you've been talking a lot about it, but it's great for the Naish to be able to come in and understand what this X-Men expansion is going to do and add to their Marvel experience, their Marvel Multiverse RPG experience. So thanks again, guys. Good luck with it. I hope it sells like hotcakes, and that and we're talking soon about the Spider-Verse. Can't wait. So
awesome.
Thanks again.
Thank you so
everybody
much for
have a
having us on.
fantastic Gen Con. I hope you're having a great one, and we'll see you soon. Take it easy. Bye.